Okay, everyone. So thank you all for joining us. There may be a few more people that dribble into the session as we go on, but hopefully that will all be okay and they will catch up with us. So my name's Chloe Ann and I am the competition organizer for the National Youth Public Speaking Competition. And our team are also working on some other opportunities that are all about speaking up to save lives. So tonight, your public speaking mentors for 2023 will be taking you through the fundamental elements of public speaking, which is a session that will show you all about the writing of a speech or the writing of a presentation and how to best deliver a speech or prepare yourself to give one. So I'm going to hand you over to the mentors to introduce themselves. Sanaya, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So hi everyone, I'm Sneha. I'm a St. John cadet from the north and I'm one of your mentors this year.
And Freya.
Hi, I'm Freya. I'm also from the north. I'm 18, so I'm a student volunteer at the moment, and I'm also one of your mentors this year.
And finally, George.
Hello everybody, my name's George. I am one of the mentors for this upcoming competition. I hope we're doing well. Yeah.
So there's also Maddie, who is the lead mentor, who is running a different workshop tonight for another group of young people. So George, Maddie, Freya and Sanaya will all be available to you should you choose to compete in this year's competition. They'll be here to support you with any of your big or small questions, provide one-to-ones, etc. So let's get on with the session.
Okay, so to start with, we're just going to have a little look about what we're going to do in this session. So we're basically going to start by looking at what the benefits of speaking skills are. So why you want to do this competition in the first place, why you want to develop these skills, how that can kind of help you. We're then going to look at what the National Youth Public Speaking Competition actually is. So you can find out a little bit more about that, and then you can find out how to enter as well, because hopefully you'll all be wanting to do that by the end of this session. So we're going to be starting by looking at kind of how to write speeches.
So we're going to go through all the things that make it engaging, and then at the end we'll also share some more information with links and stuff in the chat so you have everything you need, and we'll also email out to those of you that signed up for tonight's session. George, do you want to take us through our learning objectives?
Yeah, so for the learning objectives, so all cadets should understand how to deliver a speech well. Most cadets should feel confident writing a speech for the selection round. And then some cadets will enter the 2023 National Youth Public Speaking Competition.
So what are the benefits of public speaking? Tell us in the chat what you think some of the benefits to public speaking skills may be. And also, where do you think you can use public speaking skills in St. John? Because there are so many opportunities, but we want to know what you think, really. So yes, we've got builds confidence, which is definitely true. Having a voice in society, that's very important as well.
I really like the idea of helping you pass on your skills to others, especially when in St. John you do leadership courses or you look at being a young demonstrator. That is so important to share your skills with others. Equally for sharing your viewpoint.
I think with clarity is also important because if you're going to fumble over your words or you won't be able to get what you want actually to get across, it can get difficult for you to use your voice in the best way. So that's very important.
Definitely. Someone's added to that and they've said giving yourself a distinct mannerism and a presence. I really like one that says increasing employability, which is definitely true. When I was applying for jobs, I found that one of the pieces of feedback I got the most was that I was really well spoken. And that I had a strong idea of how to form my sentences, form my opinions. And I definitely think the more practice you have of that, the better it becomes. Are there any favourites that you and George have for Freya? I do quite like the one that says finding your voice. I don't know if you guys have
Yeah, I
seen
was
that
just going
one.
to say that one. I think that's really good because kind of developing public speaking skills can help you kind of think a bit more about who you are and, you know, what you're passionate about, and it can just help you communicate that to other people, which is really important.
And that can be the hardest thing when writing a speech or presentation, actually thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to speak about? And what is my topic?
I think I also really like Ella's point about being a good team leader, because a lot of things, to be an effective leader, you need to be able to communicate yourself effectively while also engaging all of your team. And to do that, it involves a lot of speaking. So that's definitely important.
I definitely agree with that. When you think about the stretch and challenge question, and think about how developing public speaking skills can make you achieve future goals, one of my big goals after being a cadet of the year was to take on a leadership role. And then developing the National Youth Public Speaking Competition was a really good opportunity for that. And it definitely did, you know, not only boost my confidence, but the confidence of those around me. So speaking is definitely a confidence skill, but also a leadership skill in its own right. If we take a look at the next slide, there should be a couple more ideas that we definitely haven't gotten.
So some of the benefits that we've got on this slide are clarity, which we've mentioned, but also demonstrating knowledge, critical thinking, self-respect. I think that's quite a big one, and it links with confidence and self-confidence quite a bit, but also things like versatile working and being a better listener, because even though we're building public speaking skills, if you want to be able to communicate effectively, listening is a big part of that. Are there any favorites that anybody else on the screen?
I really like the idea of being able to demonstrate your knowledge. I think it can be really frustrating when you have a fantastic idea and you don't know how to give that to others, and you don't know how to entice them into your concept. I think also informing others and encouraging them to do the same as you, so you can give people all the information they need so that they can make decisions that are right for them.
So one of the ones on this screen, which I actually didn't expect that much, is research skills. And I think when you're putting together a speech and you're structuring it, the ideas that you're putting forward need to be well researched and need to be correct, especially if you're using stats, which are also really powerful. So research skills is another thing that you can develop with public speaking, and something that we definitely will do over the competition.
Definitely. If you're going to be a specialist in your own right and a specialist in your topic, you need to be making sure that you're listening to and researching from the best sources. Otherwise, the points you're making just aren't going to be valid, and that's going to deplete the context and the content of your speech. So, what is the National Youth Public Speaking Competition? So, the speaking competition is a development opportunity for all St John Ambulance young people. So, this covers ages 12 to 17 on the date of the competition, which means the NHS cadets are involved, St John cadets, young responders, and health citizens. And the competition has a focus on social activism, public speaking, and the event creates a supportive environment for young people to speak up on topics that will save lives. So there are 2 rounds. Firstly, a selection round, and then the national final. Don't worry, we will support you on every step of the way. That's what your mentors are here for. So we will provide workshops and mentoring and development sessions to all of the young people who make it through to the national final. And we will share a little bit more information on how you can enter the selection round at the end of the session. So last year, Libin Pakrash was our national finalist and overall winner for 2022. And he competed in March last year. So he spent a couple of months at the start of the year preparing for the competition, and then had their opportunity. So Libin couldn't be with us tonight, but has prepared a couple of little videos to share all about his experiences with you.
Growing up, I've always been quite a shy person, so I never thought public speaking was for me. Public speaking was always something that I aspired to do, but never really had the confidence to do it until the National Youth Public Speaking Competition. The selection round was very broad, where we got the opportunity to do a speech about anything to do with health and social care and social activism. Getting through to the national round definitely took me by surprise, but it gave me the self-confidence that I needed about my public speaking abilities.
How to enter the selection round. The first step is to fill out an entry form, which I will pop in the chat in a second. Then you write a speech about a health and social care or social activism topic of your choice. You can then record your entry. So it's really important that your entry is under 3 minutes so that it can fit into our submissions box, and then upload your entry to the submissions box using the support tool for information on how to upload. So that's 4 things. You fill in an entry form, prepare your topic, prepare your speech and film it, and then upload it to the submissions box. And do remember that the mentors are here to help you. They are always an email away, and they are absolutely fantastic at giving you all the feedback that you need, even before you submit your first draft. So it is important to note that in order to enter the competition, you must be between the ages of 12 and 17. So you can't turn 18 before the 26th of March 2023, and you cannot have held the title of District Cadets of the Year, District Cadet of the Year. District Cadets of the Year are welcome though to be supported by the team. Just drop us an email and we're happy to help with anything that we can.
Okay, so we're now going to do some little tips and tricks to kind of help you get started thinking about writing a speech to enter the competition. So when you're structuring a speech, you basically want to, as it says, tell them what you're going to tell them in the introduction, then tell them, so talk about what you want to present, and then at the end, tell them what you've told them. So start with your introduction. As the name suggests, this is the first thing that your audience is going to hear. So you really want to establish your topic and your core message and outline how you're going to support this. So talk a little bit about introducing the topic. A lot of people in the audience might know nothing about it, so that can be a good place to start, just the bare basics of it. And then you want to move on to the body, so some supporting points and do some context, and this is good place to do anecdotes and statistics and symbolism, and basically just to kind of build on what you've started to talk about in the introduction and kind of develop your points a bit more, just to really kind of show what you're speaking about. And then in your conclusion, you want to recap what you've just said in the body. You want to summarize your core messages, so summarize those 3 points that we mentioned, and then talk to the audience, tell them what you want them to do, a sort of a call to action of, if you're talking about a health and social care topic, then there might be something that your audience can do. Give them something that they can take away from your speech, from your message, what you really want to share with them.
Okay, so structuring presentations. So before choosing a structure, answer the key questions. So what is the aim of your presentation? Who is your audience? What are the points you want the audience to remember? And less is more on a PowerPoint. Have key points and then expand on them. When using a visual element to present it, it should always be engaging and simple. When using a slideshow, try and keep the font size over 18 and then elaborate clearly. So structuring speeches and presentations. So there's lots of models. Do you know what, Chloe-Anne? This writing's horrible. There's lots of models that make a speech or presentation structure really strong or unique. What do our mentors like to do when they write their speeches? So Freya, do you have anything to say on that one?
I think kind of one of the first things you want to do is make sure you choose something that you are genuinely interested in. Don't just kind of look stuff up and think, kind of see the first thing and go with that. You want to do something that you're genuinely interested in, because that passion will kind of show through when you're actually speaking. So I think that's kind of number one for me.
Yeah, I think that's something that I always think about when I'm writing my speeches is, am I passionate about this topic? Is it something that I will be able to convey to the audience with the emotion that I feel towards it? For example, if you're speaking about, I don't know, let's pick a random topic, the day your dustbins get collected outside your house. Now, for me, I'm really not that bothered. So if I was to write a passionate speech, it probably wouldn't come across to the audience as very passionate. My mum, however, she may be able to write a bit more of an empowering speech to the audience as to her view. So you've got to think about the topic that you're using.
I definitely agree with that. And I think Esme, who did the competition last year and is shown on screen, did this really well. So Esme took a topic that not many people were aware of, which was Tourette's syndrome. And there's so many misconceptions around Tourette's syndrome. And if you haven't seen the speech, I won't spoil it for you. However, they linked a concept that a lot of people are really familiar with to a concept that others will not be so familiar with. So Esme linked the idea of holding in a sneeze with the idea of holding in a tick. And that was a really, really positive way of bringing the audience in and making them feel as though they could relate to the topic, which is a really strong tool and technique, which a lot of your favorite public speakers or presenters will be doing.
So what actually makes a speech or a presentation engaging? A lot of even things like TikToks have something that can keep you hooked. But let's think things like films or TV shows or music and books. What keeps you watching and listening? This is a question, I think. What actually keeps you engaged with things like that? What keeps you not being bored or droning off or, just zoning out, I think is the word I was looking for. What will keep you engaged? So I think we've got graphics in the chat. There was an important thing about how images and how our brains actually like images quite a lot. We tend to remember things if they're associated with images. And energy, yes, energy is definitely a big one. It needs to be exciting and upbeat. I think I love Charlie's about the startling statistics. They always, personally, I completely love like when you throw in the facts and they're really powerful because they're real. And rhetorical questions are always amazing because they do make you think, and they do they have a lot of power behind them where they make the audience go, oh, if that was directed at me, how would I actually answer that?
One of my favorite tools and one of my favorite structures used in public speaking is a cylindrical structure, where you take the first point and you say something, and then at the very end you link back to that beginning point, which I found on TikTok is something that people do quite a lot. So there's those TikTok loops, which I find really engaging because it makes me want to watch it again, it makes me want to listen again, and it makes me want to revisit all the ideas that the speakers come up with and analyze them for a second time.
Yeah, I think that also brings everything together really nicely, and you can actually, emphasize what your main point is.
It does make sure that you follow that clear pattern, that clear topic, and that you are really concise in what you're saying, because you need to be making sure that your introduction and conclusion are really clearly giving the ideas that you want to give and not persuading the audience to have different ideas as you go along. They're wrapped with you the whole way.
Yeah, I also like the idea in the chat going around suspense, and also you want to know what happens next. That's definitely a thing with films and books and TV shows. And also something that you could be able to incorporate into your speeches along with the rhetorical questions, kind of going, where are they going with this? What am I going to learn from the speech? And things similar to that.
I really like it when someone tells me a story. I think that's a really effective way to give a speech, because you are holding on, you do want to know what happens next, and it's a really interpersonal link with your audience, so they feel as though they've got a relationship with you. It's almost like your little secret between the audience and yourself.
That's just made me think of recently where I've attended quite a few sessions around where speakers came in, and the most powerful speaker ever that I've from personal experience, she made it into a story, and it was a very sensitive and important issue, but she engaged the whole audience, and you were really wrapped around it, just like a film, just like a TV show or a book, but actually because she made it into a storyline and she managed to add her stats and her figures. It was very, very engaging.
I definitely agree, and I think that gives us loads of ideas as we move on, and loads of things for you guys in the workshop to think about when you're doing your speeches to enter the competition.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about kind of scripting a speech. So hopefully at this point you'll kind of started thinking about ideas about what you might want to do. So planning is obviously really important. So you want to make sure that you stick to one concept and theme. So you have to kind of plan your message to make sure you're clear. So kind of rather, you might think of a broad topic overall, but rather than kind of talking about that broad topic, maybe choose one thing to focus on. So planning can really help with that and make sure you stay on track. Scripting can also be really helpful. You can make sure that your ideas are clear and that your speech or presentation has a good structure to maintain a flow. So it kind of makes sure that if you kind of start speaking about something, there might be a particular bit that actually you want to speak about a lot more, but scripting kind of helps you stay on track and you can revisit things later on if you want to. So sometimes scripting can kind of be like pieces of a puzzle. So you have to move things around and edit them slightly to improve and develop your public speaking abilities. So this might mean that when you're writing your script, you kind of have, a few different paragraphs written out and you decide actually this paragraph might be better further up and I can end with this one. And it might just need a bit of moving around, but again, that's something that we can help you with. And also it's important to remember to take inspiration and not plagiarize. We've talked a little bit about kind of doing research and how important that is, but when you are doing research, it's really important that you're kind of not just copying and pasting something you found on the internet or in a book or whatever. You want to really make it your own. You want to look at those ideas that other people have come up with and kind of think about how those apply to your topic and how those apply to you and what you want to say about those things to the audience. So you don't just want to be researching something and then give it straight to the audience. You want to kind of think about what you want to say about what you've researched. So we've got a quote up here. So if you were to do a speech about that quote, how would you begin? You want to put something in the chat about that?
So while you guys are typing your ideas, the quote says, the strongest weapon against hateful speech is not repression, it is more speech. So if you were to be sharing Obama's idea, if you were to be using that quote to enhance your public speaking, what is it that you would say? How would you embed that into your script? I can imagine you all typing away now, trying to quickly get a little paragraph ready. So Anoop says, follow your thoughts and don't let others hold you back. Anyone else got any ideas? If you want to pop those in the chat. You've got a lot of people coming up with different kind of elements of the quote. So you've got silence is weakness, which is a different quote. You have give respect and receive it. If you have had a helpful speech, to use your own speech to contradict that. Treat others how you want to be treated. Lots of taking inspiration.
I think that really kind of shows that, we have this one quote, but everybody has come up with a slightly different interpretation of it and come up with something different that they want to talk about it. And that really is kind of making every speech your own.
Definitely. And I think one of my favorite things to do when I'm taking inspiration from someone else is to take one word of their quote and then explain it. So in this one, I could choose hate speech or repression. And I might elaborate on that by explaining what that means and then sharing Obama's message of speaking more and elevating voices and empowering others to share positive messages. Then if we take a look at the next bit.
So structuring speeches and presentations for this bit, we're looking at these two slides that are in front of you. So if you look at both of them, obviously there's a lot of visual differences. If you want to pop in the chat, what's different about them? And then tell us what went well. And I Googled it.
An even better if.
There we go. So for those two slides, if you want to pop in the chat.
So what do you guys think went well with the blue slide, and what do you think went well with the St. John slide? And then what could be even better if about the blue and rainbow slide, and what went well about what could be improved, sorry, about the St. John slide. So someone's said bright colours can grab your attention and engage you. But the first one is so colourful that it's very hard to read. Brian, Sanera, if you take a look at the chat, what sort of ones do you agree with? What are your thoughts?
I think the idea that actually the first one, is a very attention grabbing, but actually EBI is that it's hard to read and too elaborate. I think it's very important to find the balance between being eye catching and also having enough information. So that's a very interesting one.
I really like the idea about the St. John slide being very cohesive. So it uses matching fonts, matching colours.
Also, people mentioning the diagram on the St. John slide, that kind of grabs your attention straight away, and you can kind of immediately see what it's about without even reading anything, which is really good.
Yeah, I also really like the fact that it's color coded. So our brains, like we said earlier, like pictures, they like colors. And red is a color that lots of people associate with danger. So the call an ambulance element of that slide is in red, which is all linked, which I think is really, really good. Anoop has said the points are really clear because they're bullet pointed. Someone has said that the St. John slide has lots of information to expand on, which is really good. So it's not big waffly paragraphs, it's easy to read, and someone can elaborate on that.
I think the idea of bullet points on the St. John one is very important because that kind of makes it more structured, especially when you're reading it in your mind, and you can kind of retain the information better as well from a personal point of view.
Someone said that the important parts are in bold, so it's easy to refer back to. I really like that idea. And someone has said the subheadings are useful. I think it can be really important when using slides or PowerPoint presentations to make sure that the elements that you're using are accessible to as many people as possible. So if you've got a slide that has lots of colours on or a font that's very difficult to read, people who have dyslexia or ADHD might really struggle to read those slides. Then if we have a look at the next bit about incorporating visual elements.
So incorporating visual aids and elements. So props are a great way to show symbolism. However, they can sometimes be more of a hindrance than a help. So, for example, I've seen quite a few speeches by people talking about mental health, and what they'll do is they'll have a teddy or a little toy to guide with their speech. And sometimes it's delivered very well, and they'll use it purposefully, and they'll use it in their parts they need. However, there are some times that can get in the way. So consideration when it comes to your visual aids and props is something that you need to be looking at. So let's look at how Olivia and Was that say,
Akshita,
Kyan?
Olivia
Akshita
and
used
Akshita.
communication cards as a prop during last year's national final. What made the prop so effective? And then link back and discuss where we're considering how to make the speech engaging.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm a first aider. How can I help? Can you tell me what's happened, please? Where does it hurt? Can you tell me how much pain you're in, please? From 0 being no pain at all to 10 being the worst pain you've ever had. What about using these cards? Thanks. I'll get some help.
So what we can see there is Olivia and Akshita using their props to create a scenario.
Did you know that there are 3,239,447 people in the UK?
There we go. So what we can see is them using their props to show the audience how effective their tool can be. So in this build together task, what they were asked to do was to create something that could be added to a first aid kit. And Olivia and Akshita decided to make communication cards. And in order to reel the audience in order to engage them in their speech, they physically showed how effective communication cards can be in a first aid scenario. Do any of you guys have anything to add in the chat about that? Did you like the use of communication cards? Is there anything you would have done differently? I think it was a really creative way of creating a pitch. I've never seen anyone do it on Dragon's Den, so I definitely thought it was a great idea. So Snea, over to you for speech delivery and performance.
There we go. Sorry, the chat ones were just blocking up my mic. So when we're public speaking, a lot of the important things around that is actually how you deliver it and the performance. So we've just seen a very good creative example, but there are lots of different ways that you can actually deliver your speech. So first of all, how to prepare. You want to pick a theme and stick with it. Make it a clean looking, easy on the eye theme. Easy on the eyes theme. If you're making a PowerPoint for St. John, you can try and use the brand colors, which are obviously very, the green, that we've just seen a very good example of actually a St. John slide. But if you want to pick a theme and you want to stick to it, because that does make it better for actually continuing. And you also want to keep to the point. Sometimes it's okay to use a lot of text on a slide. We have mentioned like font sizes and things, and also like less is actually more. But for example, if you want to explain an academic concept, it is okay. However, where possible, you want to keep chunks of text to a minimum. So things like using the bullet points like we just saw on the St. John ambulance slide is a really good way, actually. Rehearse your presentation. That's obviously always the best way. Rehearsing your speech or your presentation ensures that you're confident in the order. And also sometimes when you're reading in your head, you have to assume what you've written. Read aloud to someone else. It's much easier. But also ask for feedback. So when you're practicing, ask a friend or a mentor. We've got 3 of us here, also Maddie, who are more than happy to help all of the time. Ask a friend, a family member about their opinion. How could you improve before the actual real event? Because self-reflection is really, really important. That's the best way you can develop, because I feel like your best critic is sometimes yourself. You can be the most honest with yourself. But we're always happy to give you constructive feedback. Making notes is also really important when speaking or presenting. Try not to read from from presentation slide. It can get a bit tedious because everyone can see what's written. But when you're making a speech, know your key points and try not to keep to a rigid speech. You want some flexibility in there so you can add in a bit of your own personal things. But note cards can be really helpful if they are to the point. So things like cue cards. And finally, you need to know your timings. Try to stay in line with given timings so you ensure that you don't run over and that you have enough time to leave, you have enough time to emphasize your key points while also leaving time for questions, because they are always the most interesting.
Okay, so at this point we've kind of talked a little bit about thinking about what you want to talk about, starting to write your speech and practicing it and coming up with a PowerPoint as well. So now we're going to talk a bit about actually delivering that speech in front of people or in front of nobody while you're practicing. So we're going to look at 4 key points, which are pace, pitch, tone and smile. So if we start with pace, we want to basically make sure that we don't rush. There's quite a tendency kind of while you're doing public speaking, you want to get through it as fast as you can, or just even without thinking about it, you automatically just go faster while you're speaking. So we want to make sure that you kind of take your time to ensure that you're speaking clearly and that the audience is understanding what you're trying to say and what you're trying to get through to them. It also gives them a bit of time to think about what you're saying if you're not kind of speeding through it too much. But at the same time, don't go too slowly. So don't go like unnaturally slowly and try and pause too often, because the audience might find it a bit disengaging. So kind of try and keep it a regular pace, how you would kind of speak in a conversation. So if we look at pitch now, when you're kind of talking, you'll have a natural pitch. Some people speak a bit higher naturally, some people speak a bit lower. It's really important that you don't kind of change this while you're doing your public speaking. If you begin to change your pitch, so if you speak higher because you're a bit nervous, or you speak lower just to kind of try and calm yourself down, then it might affect how loudly you speak. So obviously when you're doing public speaking, you want to try and speak loudly so that the whole audience is able to hear you really clearly and can properly take in what you're trying to say to them. So we'll also talk about tone. You want to make sure that your tone reflects the message of the speech. So I know before we talked a bit about kind of enthusiasm and making sure you do something you're passionate about, but if you're doing something you're passionate about, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be really happy and excited about what you're talking about. You can share that enthusiasm in other ways. So especially when you're kind of talking about more difficult topics, kind of having a really excited tone while you're talking about it might not properly fit in. Your tone should also change as you build on your point. So you shouldn't kind of have a flat tone the whole time. You should change as you expand and develop and go through different points. And you also want to consider the negatives and the positives in your message. So kind of weigh up both sides of what you're talking about. And finally, this might be the most important, is to smile. You want to try and relax. It's very difficult when you have a lot of people looking at you and you're speaking about something, but the audience are with you, not against you. They have come to watch you speak. They want to see you succeed. They're genuinely interested in what you're talking about. So when you're up there in front of people and you're talking to people, regardless of the situation, you want to breathe normally. Don't slow your breathing down or speed it up. Just try and concentrate on what you're saying and smile when it's appropriate. So when you go up there and you're ready to start speaking, but also make sure that you enjoy the experience. So, you know, we've talked about all of these tips, but while you're up there, you don't want to be thinking too much about your breathing and your pitch and your tone. Just focus on what you want to say to the audience and focus on getting that out there, because it's something that you're passionate about. So that is something that you should enjoy doing.
Okay, and how do you enter the National Youth Public Speaking Competition? So, as we said before, your first step is to fill in an entry form. Once you've filled in the entry form, we will send you an email with a support tool and upload instructions for your submission. So, your entry and your submission should be a recording of you giving a speech or presentation to the camera. This should be no longer than 3 minutes, and it should be on a topic that is related to health and social care or social action. If you need any help with anything along the way, whether that's choosing your topic, making sure your topic is related to health and social care or social action, writing your speech, kind of rearranging your points or making sure that your research is okay, our mentor team are available to support you. And the email address for that is youthspeakingcomp@sga.org.uk. They are genuinely happy to answer any questions, big or small, so don't be afraid to prompt them a little line or a little message with that on. In order to enter the competition, you do have to do both the entry form and upload your video submission to the selection round. Shortly after completing the entry form, we will send you everything you need, and all of the contact information for all of the mentors will be in that email too. So in the chat, I have put the link to the entry form as well as a little bit more information, and you are all more than welcome to enter. Does anyone have any questions? The links will also be in the description box of the YouTube video that goes out, so this recording, and they will also be on social media on the Regional Youth Forum pages. When is the deadline for uploading your video entry? That's a very good question. So the deadline is the 1st of December. So you have just over 2 weeks to do your entry form, film your video, and then submit it to the selection round. No one seems to have any questions, which must mean the mentors have done a very good job on this workshop. I'll give you all a couple more minutes to pop those in. But I just want to say a big thank you to all the mentors for tonight. You've been absolutely brilliant, especially to not have this many questions at the end. So will there be another lesson? There will be some other workshops available, but potentially not before the selection round has ended. So if you would like any more help, the mentors are available. They can do one-to-ones or you can email them. Equally, you're more than welcome to watch this workshop back or the workshop from last year. How do you upload the video? So the video uploading instructions will all be sent once you've filled in the entry form. So we will send those to your email on how to submit your entry. No one has any questions, you're all the more welcome to carry on with your evenings. Thank you all for coming. I cannot wait to see lots of you entering the competition. It will be really exciting to see who makes it to the national final. If you do have any questions, don't be afraid to ask us. Take a picture of this slide. It has all the information you need. The mentors don't bite. They're really lovely. So I'm sure they won't mind you dropping them an email.
I do promise we don't bite.
You are all more than welcome. I'm excited to see what you'll choose, what sort of topics people come up with. Very excited. Oh, Libin's popped into the chat to wish you all luck. I think Libin's just as excited as I am.